Hello everybody and welcome back to the GrimCast. I'm your host Death and Grim, and I would like to briefly apologize for the lateness of this video. I could not find any time to work on it yesterday as I was extremely busy, so today I will be putting it up. In this cast we're going to be reviewing a mixture of survival horror and platformer game. It's called The End of the World by indie developer Beersy Games. Alright, so I'd like to say a quick few words on this game. One, I did not complete it. So this game rating will actually be pending and it could be subject to change in the future, but I would love to give a grade on what I've played so far, and you guys deserve a cast, so I'm going to get started on the review right now. The concept of the game is that it's a mix between platformer and survival horror, aiming for the titles such as Resident Evil and Silent Hill. It pulls this off rather nicely with an 8-bit style, as well as using sound effects to produce a creepy atmosphere, as well as music that doesn't interrupt the whole entire subtle feel. There are jump scares to be had and things of that nature. Ammo is sparse, and of course zombies annoy you. So the concept of the game isn't too original, but most of the time, what concept really is these days. However, the concept is pulled off rather nicely, even for an 8-bit game. Story-wise, I'm not too sure what's in store beyond the part that I'm at, but I'll tell you what I know so far. Basically, it's the same zombie apocalypse story we've been hearing all the time, and all fuck breaks loose on Earth and turns everybody into zombies, and your character is traveling to the safe zone. The end. Alright, that's as far as I've gotten in the story. I'm not sure if it's any further than that. Like I said, this review can be subject to change as I play more and more through this game, because I find myself rather interested in trying to find where all the rest of the humans are, instead of the mangled bodies that lie around this mansion that you go around. The gameplay-wise, as I stated before, it's a mixture between survival horror and platforming. So you'll be doing a mixture of jumping and trying to evade zombies or just outright killing them, as well as using clues to solve puzzle elements throughout the entire thing. Honestly, the puzzles are a bit confusing at times, but all in all aren't too challenging. However, I do feel at the current point that I'm at that the game tries to juggle just too many puzzles, and it often leaves to you feeling lost. If the game had just a tad bit more direction, it would probably be a little less frustrating than running into constant dead ends. But all in all, the puzzles aren't too challenging. However, I haven't played far enough to completely decipher them. They're so far relatively good, well thought out, and while they aren't too overly complex, they're still enough to get you going. So all in all, on the gameplay front, this game happily marries the cousins of survival horror and platforming. It does it pretty well. However, I have to say that the AI is rather retarded. And what I mean by this is I'm not insulting the AI in any sort of way. The AI is supposed to kill you. They're zombies. But however, I feel that rather the deaths are pretty cheap. You'll end up dying because a dog miraculously is able to switch directions in midair as you try to get it to jump over you. This honestly leads a little bit of a cheap, break from the evasion tactic if zombies can follow your every move one-to-one. It makes the evasion rather pointless if they're just going to keep chasing you. And the dogs? Come on, what shifts momentum in midair? This leads to rather frustrating deaths, as well as with the zombie bats and zombie everything else. All in all, I think the gameplay is solid, but however, the frustrating deaths come from flaws in the design, simply from trying to balance the difficulty of the game, but at the same time, the survival horror nature taking out the survival of the game if the zombies can just hunt you down by simply moving left and right. It makes them feel like they're not easy to fool. Graphics in the game, it looks actually pretty good. I think that the 8-bit style rather fits the game pretty nicely, and the way that it pulls off creepiness is actually even more effective. The ambient sounds around the backgrounds actually pull off a nice atmospheric effect, so it doesn't make you feel like, oh, this is another 8-bit game. Har har har, look at the graphics. Instead, it makes you feel rather alone with the creepy music and the ambient sound effects of people dying as you approach doors. However, that does get rather cheap, and the moan of the zombies can be quite annoying at times, and it gets rather tiring after the 50th time you've heard it. However, the sound used for jump scares is rather nice. I did like this one part where a dog jumped through the window in an old tribute to Resident Evil, I'm pretty sure that's where it's from, and the music started ramping up, and it rather gave me a jump, I'll admit. Kind of a chicken. But all in all, the sound design and the artistic design go really well and hand in hand here. I didn't find any fault with it. I do need to say that the color palette is rather low. It could have been more. But all in all, even if there's palette swaps of the same human over and over, the game design still looks nice. You're still able to tell what's dangerous and what's not. This looks like a key, this looks like a ruby, this looks like this looks like that. I really wish there was a gun animation, but oh well. Overall, I enjoyed the game's effort and persistence in trying to be one of the big boys in the survival horror genre, and it really does put a lot of effort towards it, but however, there are design decisions that hold it back from actually being truly survival horror. For one thing, zombies can catch you no matter what. If you're supposed to survive, how are you going to get away from zombies that track your movement one-to-one? And it leads to rather cheap deaths, so the survival is kind of taken out eventually. As well as some of the environments are okay. It's repeating doors, this and that. Honestly, I didn't expect that much from an 8-bit game. And the puzzles feel like they're juggling each other too much once in a while, and you really don't feel like you know your objective, and the storytelling isn't getting anywhere. So I feel if the game had more pacing, perhaps maybe telling more story bits in between the puzzles or, this and that, it would be much more enjoyable than it is. But it's still a nice little sit down. You'll actually enjoy the tense atmosphere as you're wondering what's around next. This looks creepy in the dark. Use your lantern, find ammo, and all I have to say this is definitely find ammo because the zombies will otherwise kill you anyway, leading to frustrating